Welcome to a special episode of the 2025 Property Report podcast by Property Guru. This special episode is brought to you by HLB, the official supervisor of PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards. Today, we are switching it up with a special PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards Middle East panel discussion on bridging continents, unlocking real estate investment opportunities between the Middle East and Southeast Asia. My name is Tina Ryan, and I will be your host for this conversation. As investment ties between these regions grow, real estate is becoming a critical area of collaboration. With regulatory shifts, emerging opportunities, and sustainability at the forefront, today's discussion will explore what investors need to know to capitalize on this evolving landscape. Joining us today, we have Chelsea Perino, Managing Director of Global Marketing and Communications at the Executive Center. She is the newest member of the PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards Middle East Independent Panel of Judges. Another respected judge is Stephen Ohm, Managing Director of Quantum Analysis Private Limited. With us also is Paul Ashburn of HLB International Real Estate, the official supervisor of the awards program, and a representative from our official supervisor in Dubai, John Verghese, Managing Partner at HLB HAMT. All right, let's dive right into it. Our first question is for Stephen. What are the key real estate trends driving investment in the Middle East in 2025?
Well, the Middle East has got a lot of attractions, and these have been demonstrated over much longer than a decade. There's steady growth under all metrics. GDP growth, population growth, etc., are all very, very strong and steady and controlled, managed extremely well. There's also a demonstration of excellent rates of return in terms of rental yields and also capital growth, an excellent combination. And also in relation to excellent inflation control, has been very, very steady, very well managed, and that's all helping to a stability of a regulatory environment. And in terms of other aspects, for example, foreign exchange, very, very steady with most of the countries in the Middle East pegged to the US dollar. Of course, Kuwait has been not pegged, but a basket of currencies, also been extremely stable over the last 10 years. So currently and in the future, we can see that they are managing the foreign exchange risk very well, very excellent for investment. Also, of course, and for many people, this is the number one criteria that perks interest and real attraction, and that's the tax regime. Very low corporate tax at 9%, zero personal income tax, zero capital gains tax, zero wealth inheritance taxes, etc. Excellent platforms for investment, of course. Also, excellent investment protections. Escrow for buying off plan and other regulatory controls promoting high transparency and compliance by the market. Excellent, again, for attracting investment. Also, the ease of doing business, the incentives for investment, for transparency, a legal system that supports predictable and reliable outcomes for investors. All of these are not only desires of the leaderships in the Middle East, but also something that they have proven established, and there's a very strong track record. Also looking at sustainability across what I would say is all four pillars, the environmental, but also the human, the social, and the financial all together. There's a lot of confidence, and it's very demonstrable by the metrics for investment in the Middle East.
For Chelsea, welcome to the podcast. How is the commercial real estate market evolving in Dubai and Riyadh? And which other sectors are attracting investor interest alongside hospitality?
First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's really exciting to be here. I think there's so much interest in the Middle East at the moment, which is super exciting. And I think the idea of cross-border business, cross-border collaboration has really exploded post-COVID. the Dubai has been around, as Stephen mentioned, for a long time from a business perspective, but we're really starting to see an acceleration of growth in other markets beyond Dubai. So Abu Dhabi, some of the other Emirates, and then of course the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which is just exploding in terms of real estate development. The Executive Center obviously is a flexible workspace provider. We have 220 offices across all of Asia, and we entered into the Dubai market in 2018. And I think the flexible workspace industry was quite nascent at that time. So there was still an elementary understanding, or I would say a perspective that it wasn't a serious kind of business. And there was a little bit of hesitancy and, question marks around what was the sustainability of that business model, where did it fit into the corporate real estate environment in the Middle East. And so when we first entered into that market, it was interesting to have conversations with landlords and with potential customers, because it was like, well, we don't really know, we don't understand how this model works. We don't really trust the sustainability of it and the reliability and also just the quality of the infrastructure. But the Executive Center has always been very proud of the level of quality and experience of our spaces. And so we really believed that the Middle East had so much potential. And so as we started to speak to clients and build more connections, we started to see that perception start to shift. And then COVID happened, and all of a sudden, Dubai was the only place that was actually open for people to do business, where the rest of at least the Asian markets were really limited. And that's where we really saw this idea of flexibility take off. And since then, we've now expanded into several offices in Dubai, into Abu Dhabi, and we will be opening in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in September of this year. And just the perception of the value proposition of flexible workspaces is completely different now. So as opposed to pre-COVID, where there was this sort of hesitancy to try and understand how a flexible workspace could be valuable, now the conversations are very strategic. It's like, how can we leverage this product model to help our businesses enter into a new environment that has so much potential across industry, across sectors? I mean, you look at hospitality, you look at consulting, you look at law, you look at advertising. I mean, like every single sector is booming over there at the moment. But it's not necessarily the easiest market to enter into immediately. And so the value proposition that a flexible workspace concept brings is that it's kind of a business facilitator, right? So you can go into a market, you can get an office right off the bat. If you want to get a business license, you actually have to have an office. So it really helps accelerate that entire procedure. And then as your business hopefully continues to grow and take advantage of all of the amazing opportunities that are taking place in that region, then you can either decide to expand within, scale up, scale out. So I'm really seeing a big shift in terms of the interest in our product model, which is super exciting.
Thank you, Chelsea. This one's for Paul. Why are Southeast Asian investors, particularly Thailand, looking at the Middle East as a prime investment destination?
Great question. I think it goes back to when you look at the region, it's a story of transformation. It's historically rich in hydrocarbon wealth. The largest economies in the Middle East, such as Saudi Arabia and UAE, are having to transform their economies and diversify their economies in order to move away from the dependency on oil. So if we look at Saudi Arabia, they have their very ambitious Vision 2030 initiative. And in that vision, real estate is undergoing a very significant transformation. One of the things quoted is that Saudi is looking to be in the top 10 in global tourism, not too far away, and maybe in 5-10 years be top 5. And that's really an amazing transformation from where they were, say, 10-15 years ago. One of the things Stephen touched on was about the environment there and how it's very business friendly, has the tax incentives. And so it's clear that the countries in this region want to attract investors. And at the moment, you've seen the last few months that suddenly we're in a kind of a world of uncertainty about economic policies and where we're heading. So it's always attractive and reassuring to investors to know that there's a stable framework there and that they can be confident to invest in the future. Just one other comment I'll make is that if I look at from a Thailand perspective, the market for real estate in Thailand, it's generally soft at the moment. It's more mature markets, quite challenging. There are pockets of activity, say in Phuket, where you attract more international clientele and you have buyers with no bank finance. So you can see then that people here will be looking to diversify their real estate portfolios. And one thing I found interesting, and this is more anecdotal evidence, that there are road shows being undertaken in Bangkok selling Dubai property. So, and when they're advertising, typically advertising in English, holding them in 5-star hotels. So obviously they think there is an appetite here in Thailand, particularly in Bangkok, for Dubai property.
Thank you, Paul. John, how have recent regulatory changes like foreign ownership laws made it easier for Southeast Asian investors to enter markets like Saudi Arabia and the UAE?
First of all, thank you for having me here today. Yes, the regulatory changes in Saudi Arabia and UAE has undergone a significant transformation during the last 5 years, creating more welcoming environment for Southeast Asian investors. When I look at the changes which has happened in Saudi Arabia, as Paul said, Vision 2030, it has been a catalyst for change. It's not only just a plan, it's reshaping the entire investment ecosystem. Another introduction of premium residency scheme in 2019 allows foreign investors to enter the real estate market and can have ownership excluding Mecca and Medina. And we all heard about these special economic zones like NEOM and King Abdullah Economic City, which allows now offer 100% foreign ownership options for the investors. For the UAE, the famous Golden Visa program introduced in 2019 offers long-term residency for property owners, making it easier for the Southeast Asians and expatriates to establish a presence in UAE. Like Saudi Arabia in 2020, UAE amended the Commercial Companies Act and allows 100% foreign ownership in many sectors. Also, the Abu Dhabi 2019 freehold property law allows foreigners to own land and property in investment zones. These are the changes have several implications, for the Southeast Asian investors. Some of them is the easier market entry because it allows 100% ownership for the property and as well as the for establishing business. And it is a diversification opportunity. It can explore a wider range of properties and sectors of business. It gives long-term stability because it's a long-term visa options, and these changes give an increased transparency for the investors to come and invest in these countries. But it is important to note that while these changes are significant, they are part of an ongoing process. Both Saudi Arabia and UAE continue to refine their regulations to attract foreign investment. And I'm sure we can expect further developments in the coming years as well. Thank you.
This is for everyone. What is one misconception that investors have about entering the real estate market in the Middle East or Southeast Asia? What is the reality? Ms. Chelsea, would you like to go first?
Sure. So I think one of the interesting revelations that I've had in spending more time in the Middle East over the last year and a half, I guess you could say, is there is a real shift in conversations around equity. And I don't mean like private wealth equity. I mean conversations around, equal treatment of people. And I think that was a big concern for organizations for a long time is, what is the human resources conversations that are happening in that market? And as a huge proponent of women empowerment, I just launched a new organization called NUA Global Network of Unified Women in Action. And the purpose of that is facilitating business growth between women in Asia and the Middle East. And one of the catalysts for that was that there are so many amazing women in the Middle East that are making big changes, that are involved in business in every kind of sector. And I think that a lot of people didn't realize that and didn't think about that, 5 years ago. So there's this whole new generation and this whole new population of people that are super motivated, that are highly educated, that want to get involved, both from a local perspective, but also that sort of shift in mentality. And again, going back to what both Stephen and Paul touched on, the Vision 2030 is, the government is really investing time, money, energy, again, right? To like create an ecosystem that's going to attract talent. And that's what we continue to talk about in Asia, right? And across the whole world, what are the different value propositions that an organization brings to the table, that a location brings to the table to bring the most interesting people over there? And that's what I'm seeing at the moment. I mean, I live in Hong Kong, and I can, off the top of my head, give you 5 people in my direct network that have gone to the Middle East in the last 6 months, because there are so many interesting projects that are happening, and there are so many smart people that are over there at the moment that it's a really exciting place to be. And so I'm so happy to see that shift has taken place. And I mean, even from my perspective, when I went over there for the first time, I also, I had a little bit of a question mark, like, what is the reception going to be like? What is the experience going to be like? How will I be treated as a woman? And I was blown away by the hospitality, by the respect, and just by how many super motivated, interesting people are over there. And I think that's a really exciting evolution, I guess, of the market.
Thank you, Chelsea. Who would like to answer next?
You see, I feel one of the misconceptions about the Middle East market is this market is only for luxury investments and only for ultra high net worth individuals. While reality is, it's true that markets like Dubai are known for luxury properties, but there is actually a diverse range of investment opportunities. For example, like affordable housing initiatives, both Saudi Arabia and UAE have launched affordable housing programs. Saudi Arabia's Sakani program aims to increase home ownership to 70% by 2030. And currently in UAE, if you can see that, the recent changes, what has happened is the rent-to-own concept. Before, the Southeast Asian investors or the parties who are living here, they are living in a rented apartment and never thinking about the investment option here. But the flexibility provided by the investors and the government to rent to one, they're giving a flexible payment plan to give them to pay rent and own your apartment, so that they may be giving up to 20-25 years payment option, so which will help the people who are working here to own an apartment and live here. So I think, and there are a lot of such programs, such options is available in the Emirates, like Dubai, Sharjah, and Ras Al Khaimah. That's coming with the new projects, which is affordable for the affordable housing initiatives. I think that's a misconception about one of the misconceptions about the Middle East market.
Thank you, John. Paul?
Misconceptions. I'm trying hard to find one. I think maybe in the past there were, but like I was in Dubai last year and I caught up with John and developers and other real estate professionals, and there's a real positive vibe there. There's activity and people are positive about the future. Saudi, last 12, 18 months, for the first time, I've been making contacts there. This morning, I'm on a call with someone there. So you kind of know, like, I've been used to Southeast Asia, all the focus here with our growing economies. But I can feel it in the Middle East, in particular UAE and Saudi Arabia, attracting a lot of attention, and we can't ignore it. So I think it's you've the time's now. If you haven't looked at it yet, you better start looking at it, because it's going to be a very important place for business in the future internationally, and you're seeing it now with Saudi Arabia being involved also, in diplomatic levels with political affairs, and that's all set to continue to increase their role in the world economy and just world matters generally.
Thank you, Paul. And finally, Stephen.
Yes, I mean, it's very, very interesting. For so many people, the Middle East is just an unknown parameter. People don't really understand it. If they haven't been there, they haven't experienced it. And as everyone said, that's once you start to experience it, it's very different. So I think maybe in a word, a misconception could be high risk, risky, and that people think of that about the Middle East. Once you understand the marketplace there, you understand that there is a very healthy combination of caution, stability, and confidence that is being developed there. And there are a lot of parameters and metrics over the last decade or a lot longer that really demonstrate that they are very worldly. They're really looking at works around the world, and everyone has given examples of that. And they're really looking at, what are the best mechanisms and protections, processes, etc., that they can adopt, and how can they adopt them robustly to give confidence and stability and security for investment. And they're very, very good at that. They are cautious, but they're also very proactive, and they're really achieving that really well. And last year at the Asia Real Estate Summit 2024, our event was all about shaping of communities. And when you look at all of the different parameters that were discussed in relation to growth and GDP and population, and what makes a city a great city, and which are the ascending cities and which are the descending ones, etc. A lot of the ingredients for the future are happening now in the Middle East in very robust ways, and that's very exciting and is a good harbinger for future growth, investment success, etc. And at the moment, a lot of people don't really see that or know that or realize that, and so that's a misconception.
I agree. Can I just jump in there really quickly? Because I think that's really a good point. And if you combine that with what John said about the market, the government trying to facilitate a group of people or support a group of people and encourage them and attract a group of people beyond that ultra luxury sector, then that starts to make a lot of sense, right? Because if you think about some of the other emerging markets or markets that were emerging in the past, right? Like, in order to go and open a business there, you needed to be pretty confident, secure, with a lot of resources and a lot of expertise in that particular market. It wasn't like an easy thing to do, especially if you go back 20 years or something like that, right? But the Middle East, they are purposefully trying to make it as easy and accessible as possible to attract international people on different levels. So I totally agree with what John said about, it's not a market for just ultra rich, high net worth. Sure, that's what you see. But if you go there, you will meet people from all different industries, all walks of life that have moved over there at many different levels of management, with tons of different levels of experience, because it's actually quite easy to do, and the infrastructure is actually being built by the government to support that sort of growth, which I think is quite unique, actually.
This actually reminds me of the Middle East panel last year at the Asia Real Estate Summit, and just hear about gigacities. Very exciting. For our last question, how do you see the investment relationship between the Middle East and Southeast Asia evolving over the next 5 years?
According to me, the investment relationship between Middle East and Southeast Asia is poised for significant growth. And I feel that the reason why I'm talking, because there is a lot of infrastructure and connectivity between the countries. Major infrastructure projects continues to attract cross-regional investment. For you, as we again said about Saudi Arabia's NEOM project, is just started. So I think maybe it's directly a lot of investment options available there. Then there is increased cross-regional investment in terms of because of the Middle East sovereign wealth funds, particularly the UAE and Saudi Arabia, are likely to increase their allocations to Southeast Asian countries. Maybe another reason is these countries are focusing on emerging sectors. Both regions are emphasizing sectors like logistic, data center, and life sciences. I expect more joint ventures and partnership in these areas. There is now one of the biggest term is sustainability-driven investments. As both regions prioritize sustainability, we will likely to see increased participation or investment in green buildings and sustainable urban development projects. Then one of the common areas where everybody in this region, if you combine together, is Islamic finance as a bridge. Their shared interest in Islamic finance could facilitate more real estate transactions between the region. We might see increase in Sharia-compliant real estate investment products catering to investors from both the regions. Middle East countries push to diversify their economics beyond oil. That also could lead increased interest in Southeast Asia's diverse economic sectors from the Middle East. In my view, the next 5 years are likely to see a deepening and diversification of real estate investment ties between the Middle East and Southeast Asia. This will be given by complementary economic goals, shared interest, and the mutual benefits of cross-regional knowledge and investment diversification. Since the last 5 years, the UAE and Saudi Arabia is giving a lot of opportunities for the expatriates come and invest here. And there are many Southeast Asian countries, they are trying to, taking this opportunity and develop their business. And it's an opportunity because it's giving a long-term sustainability. They can expand their business. What is happening in their countries can be an opportunity to expand to this because it's giving a more transparency, more clear long-term perspectives for their investment. That is my take on this.
Yeah, if I could just follow up on what John has said, which I totally agree. And you can think of the Middle East as the connector, right? Because it's literally in the middle. And I think COVID created this realization that organizations, especially global organizations with assets in lots of different locations, that there's a value in having a diversified portfolio. And so, finding ways to put your assets in different places and not have it all in one basket, either from an owned asset perspective, but also just from an investment perspective and also from a production perspective, that's front and center for a lot of organizations at the moment. And that means that America and Europe are still saying, okay, Asia's really interesting, but maybe I need to expand. Okay, the Middle East, it's right in the middle. That's great. Think about the trade routes in the past, right? It all came through like this. And the other way around, right? Asian businesses, which are still thriving despite the challenges that we've gone through, are thinking the same. Like, we can't just rely on our internal ecosystem, our internal network here to facilitate our business growth. We need to start looking outwards and identify partners and identify places where there are resources to do things differently and bigger and with more partners and to expand our horizons. And again, we're seeing a lot of interest from the Asian markets going through the Middle East, identifying opportunities there and then expanding into Europe, right? So there is this really natural sort of flow of information, people, resources, capital back and forth. And the Middle East is doing a really great job, I think, of positioning themselves as a facilitator for that.
In relation to the investment relationship between the Middle East and Southeast Asia, it's only can grow, and that's an absolute definite. Already there is a lot of cross-investment happening between the Middle East and Asia in all sectors. Sovereign wealth funds in the Middle East are investing in Asia. Asian businesses, etc., are investing and growing in the Middle East. Both of them see each other as strong markets with a lot of growth and a lot of potential and a lot of reliability in the outcomes for investment proposition. And that's not only just at the corporate level, but as has been mentioned earlier, in relation to individuals and individual investment opportunities. They are very, very open, for example, in the Middle East, as they are in Asia, in ways that are just not happening in the Western world and other places where the barrier to entry is high. The regulations and requirements can be torturous and difficult, where in the Middle East, for example, they are trying to make that easier and easier, and they are doing that very successfully and with very strong rule of law, protection, transparency, etc. The parameters and metrics for investment are really, really strong at the individual level and at the corporate level. And this is really accelerated by rules and regulations, people wanting to attract investment, giving tax breaks, investments, all sorts of investment catalysts to promote and attract investments from big business down to us individuals. It's really excellent. And that is becoming more and more known. And the parameters and metrics for investment is not something that you have to rely on the forecasts, because you can look at the history, you can look at the data, and you can see that they're very, very good, stable markets. Rental yields are high. The dynamics of the various industries, as has been spoken about before, is people renting to own, people, the BTR, build to rent market is developing. As Chelsea said about co-working spaces, etc. It's a perfect environment for the Middle East is a perfect environment, as Asia is, for co-working spaces. That's definitely the future, and we are progressively, since COVID, accepted that work practice and premise, and it's ideal for companies, and it's also ideal for individuals. At every level that you look at, the cross investment is going to grow, and it's going to grow exponentially. Of all the places that are going to expand, the square meters and the headcount, etc., it's Asia and it's the Middle East. That's going to be the strongest two regions. And the growth and investment potential and investment outcomes will be very strong.
Yeah, and I think the main reason for that is that it isn't just focused in one sector. I mean, we're talking about real estate here right now, but like that's only one sector. There, I mean, like every sector is growing. Like academia is growing, and private equity is growing. I mean, literally everything is growing. And so I think that's why the real estate piece of that puzzle is so exciting, because you have to have a place for all of these people and all of these businesses to go, right? There needs to be a place for them to run their operations and for their people to live. And so that sort of symbiosis is really a catalyst for growth for both reasons, like Stephen said.
Well, Chelsea, that's right. And as Paul said earlier as well, that the divestment away from oil and gas, for example, in the Middle East, when you look at exactly what they're investing in, it's all of the future technologies. It's data centers, it's telecommunications, 5.5G, renewable energy. Mazda I've been involved in for a long time, and they're doing investments all over the world, including in Asia, for renewable energy, etc. When you look at what the actual cross investments are in the big picture, they're all of the future technologies, all the ones that are going to grow. And with that, as you're saying, that's when people are going to be spending more and more time in the different regions. And then from that, they're going to become awareness. Then that unknown and that perception of risk is going to disappear because they're going to see it firsthand. Once they see it firsthand, it's going to grow in every way. And that's not only in terms of the service industry, but also manufacturing, etc. It's happening. The cross investment's happening, and that's going to drive population growth. It's going to drive GDP growth. It's going to be very stable because they're very future-orientated technologies, businesses, and initiatives, and it's looking very positive.
Paul, if you want to quickly wrap it up.
I agree with what all the other speakers have said. Maybe I'll just add something more anecdotal, because I'm here in Thailand, and we're known for our expertise in tourism and hospitality. And I mentioned before that Saudi Arabia is looking to be like among the top 10 tourism destinations, if not top 5 in the next decade. So I think there's a good awareness in Saudi Arabia and Middle East about this expertise in hospitality. And so what I've seen over the last, say, 12, 18 months is some of the brands like Minor Hotels of Anantara and also Dusit Hotels, they're 2 Thai brands, announcing deals for Saudi Arabia for the management of hotels. And also we have Banyan Tree from Singapore already managing a hotel there. So, and I just think we're going to see that evolve even further in the future when it comes to Thailand tourism and exporting their knowledge and expertise to other regions and other countries.
But I mean, I think that's such an interesting point too, because if you think about the tourism industry just in general, like it almost feels like an unknown. It's like oh my gosh, now all of a sudden this enormous, Saudi Arabia is an enormous country. Like, how many people have ever had the opportunity to go on holiday there? 0.0001% of the population. It's like, it's the new frontier that nobody's ever had the opportunity to go and experience. And now all of a sudden, not only is it open, but you can go in 7-star luxury and go to these phenomenal resorts in these like places that you can't even imagine. And the government is doing a really good job, again, of promoting that as part of their 2030 vision. And I think the other piece of that is the entertainment sector as well. Look at golf, look at the football stadiums that are being developed in every single one of the giga projects, the theaters, the museums in Saudi Arabia alone. And then you've got the Museum of the Future, you've got the Louvre in Abu Dhabi. Like, the culture piece of the puzzle is so interesting. And that's just going to add back into the influx of people that have new ideas that will then fuel all of this other growth.
It is clear that the Middle East is not just building properties, it's building the future. So thank you so much. Chelsea and John, it was a pleasure having you both for the first time on the podcast. Thank you to our panelists for their valuable insights. The special episode is brought to you by HLB, the official supervisor of PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards. If you want to learn more about this topic, as well as the upcoming PropertyGuru Asia Property Awards Middle East, join our Asia Connect Dubai event on the final week of May 2025. For more details, visit asiapropertyawards.com or email awards@propertyguru.com. Thank you all for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you in our next episode.